This is Unit 21, Working with Data. This is Section 21.1, Types of Data. So the first thing we're going to look at is the concept corner. It says fill in the spaces below using the words in the box. So, data information from original research. So this is primary data. Is information from original research. This can include interviews, experiments and questionnaires. Let's cross off primary. If it's collected by someone else, this is secondary data. Quantitative data is information given, and there is the word numerically. So it's given as a number, such as the number of goals scored. Qualitative data is information given in words, such as the names of players who scored. I always think of qualitative as a description and quantitative just as a number. Data are discrete. If they can be counted, such as the number of sweets in a packet. Data that cannot be counted is continuous. And I'm going to check I can spell this correctly. Continuous data cannot be counted, such as the mass of sweets in a packet. Frequency measures how often something occurs. So there are my words done. So that is concept corner sorted. So for the first question, we have to state whether each of the following pieces of data are primary or secondary. So primary, you collect. Secondary, someone else collects. So a newspaper report is secondary data because someone else has collected it. A science experiment, if you do it, is primary. Interviewing people in the street is primary data. A website is secondary because someone else has collected the information. And a textbook is secondary because it's got an author who's collected the information. So that's question 1. Question 2. State whether each of the following are qualitative or quantitative. So qualitative is a description or words. Quantitative is a number. So heights of students. Heights of students, it's quantitative, it's a number. Colours of cars is a description, it's qualitative. You can't have a number of a colour. Names of favourite pop stars, qualitative, it's a description. Earnings of favourite pop stars, that's quantitative, that's money, that's a number. The frequency of which different types of soft drinks are chosen in a caf, that's quantitative because frequency is a number. It's always a number of frequency. 3. State whether each of the following measurements are discrete, continuous or neither. So discrete, they can be counted. Continuous, they cannot be counted. So mass of cars is continuous. You can't count the mass of cars, but you can weigh them. Length of snakes, continuous, because a snake can have any length it likes. Number of pets, though, is discrete. You can only have a certain number of pets. So you can't have 1.5 pets. There's only a certain numbers that you can have as a result. Time taken to run 100 metres, continuous, because it can take any value. Names of students, well, not sure you really count names of students, so it can't be discrete, and you certainly can't be continuous. I would say that's neither. Numbers of books read, I would say numbers of books read is discrete. because because you've either read a book or not read a book. So let's go on to number 4. Place each set of data in the correct place in the two-way table. Now there's 4 bits of data. So let's look at the first one. We have primary continuous, primary and discrete, secondary and continuous, and secondary and discrete. So I suspect that one goes in each box. A scientific report into change in temperature due to climate change, assuming you are not the scientists. So if I'm not the scientist, it's got to be secondary data. Temperature can take any value, you can't count temperature, therefore it's continuous. So A goes here. Done that one. Newspaper article showing the number of goals scored in 10 football matches. It's a newspaper article, I haven't written it, so it's secondary data. It's a number of goals, we can count them, therefore it's discrete. Measuring students' heights. Right, well I've measured your lot's heights and you've measured each other's heights. That's primary data, that's data we've collected ourselves. Can we count students' heights? No, it's continuous data, it can take any value. So this is where C goes. Survey recording how many siblings students have, so how many brothers and sisters you've got. Well, we can do the survey in class, so it's primary data. But you can't have half a sibling, you can't have half a brother or half a sister. Well, I suppose you could have a half brother, but they're still a, yeah, okay. But it's definitely not continuous data. You can count the number of siblings in a family. So, explain why each of the following is not a good sample for a question. What should the school lunch be? Sample 10 people in the school. Well, firstly, if the 10 don't eat school lunch, then their views probably aren't that useful, are they? Their views aren't useful, okay? It may not be so I've got lots of reasons, so you just pick one of these. It may not be representative. If you pick I have to think about that. If you pick, say, 10 year 7s, they may have very different views from year 11s. So really the sample is too small. And the sample's too small as well. It's not big enough to get a useful result. So it may have people who don't eat school lunch, it may not be representative, the sample's too small. If you ask the kitchen staff, their views on what a good school lunch menu would be very different perhaps from yours. So again, or if you ask just the general teaching staff. So you have to think about who you ask. What time do most people have lunch? 50 students. Well, if it's what time do most people have lunch, that could be anyone. And you've only asked school children. So your parents won't have lunch at the same time that you have lunch. They might do, but it's very unlikely. They will work and they might have different lunch breaks or different times. So you've only asked school children. You're only going to find out when 50 school children in the same school, they're all going to have lunch at the same time. So it really isn't very good. It's not a good sample because only one type of person was asked. Which is the best football team? 2,000 people at a Queen's Park Rangers match. Well, they're either going to say a QPR or they're going to say the opposite team. They are not going to mention any of the other teams in the league because they either support QPR or they support the opposition. So it's biased. because you're only likely to get 2 answers, QPR or those QPR is playing against. I have to think about QPR. So it's